The tiny puppy screamed as it tumbled across the polished stone driveway. Its frightened cries echoed through one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Colorado Springs, Colorado. A luxury black SUV stood with its driver's door open while a sharply dressed millionaire glared at the trembling golden retriever puppy lying on the ground. "You filthy stray!" the man shouted. "Get off my property." Several neighbors froze on their front lawns. Some reached for their phones, but nobody dared step forward. Everyone knew the man standing there. Victor Langford, a real estate billionaire whose influence seemed to reach everywhere. Just as Victor turned away, a voice cut through the silence. "Don't move another step." A tall military veteran hurried toward the injured puppy, dropping to one knee beside it. His hands gently lifted the frightened animal while his eyes locked onto Victor. The veteran's voice remained calm. "You didn't just hurt a puppy." He looked down at the shaking little dog before meeting Victor's eyes again. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." Victor smirked. "And who exactly are you?" The veteran answered without raising his voice. "I'm the man she belongs to." The neighborhood fell silent. None of them realized this was only the beginning of a story that would end inside a courtroom and change lives forever. If you enjoy stories where courage defeats corruption and justice always wins, subscribe and let's begin. 44-year-old Daniel Mercer had spent over 20 years serving his country as a U.S. Army K-9 handler. During overseas deployments, he had trusted military dogs with his life more times than he could count. When retirement finally arrived, Daniel wasn't searching for excitement. He wanted peace. He bought a modest home on a quiet street outside Colorado Springs, where towering pine trees surrounded the neighborhood and children still rode bicycles until sunset. Most mornings began the same way: coffee on the porch, a walk through the park, friendly conversations with neighbors, and always at his side a cheerful golden retriever puppy named Daisy. Daniel had rescued Daisy from an overcrowded animal shelter only 3 months earlier. The tiny puppy had been abandoned before anyone even knew her birthday. The shelter workers warned Daniel she was timid around strangers, but the moment Daisy placed one tiny paw on his boot, he knew she had chosen him. From that day forward, they became inseparable. Daniel patiently trained her with the same kindness he had once used while working with military dogs. Instead of harsh commands, he rewarded trust. Instead of fear, he taught confidence. Within weeks, Daisy transformed from a frightened puppy into the happiest dog in the neighborhood. Children loved her. Mail carriers stopped to pet her. Even elderly neighbors smiled whenever they saw her wagging tail. People often joked that Daisy greeted every person like they were an old friend. Daniel simply smiled. "She reminds me every day that kindness is stronger than fear." He believed those words. He lived by them. But only a few streets away, someone else believed power mattered far more than kindness. That man was Victor Langford. Victor Langford had built an empire buying old neighborhoods, tearing them down, and replacing them with luxury developments. His success earned him millions. It also earned him a reputation. Many admired his business skills. Few admired the man himself. Employees described him as demanding. Contractors feared disappointing him. Neighbors avoided arguments because Victor always seemed to have expensive lawyers ready to defend him. To Victor, every inch of his property represented status. Perfect lawns, perfect landscaping, perfect silence. Anything that disturbed that perfection immediately became a problem. One sunny Saturday afternoon, Daniel finished repairing a section of his backyard fence. He carried his toolbox inside, leaving the garden gate open for only a minute. That single minute changed everything. A bright yellow butterfly floated across the yard. Daisy chased it with the innocent excitement only a puppy could have. She squeezed through the open gate and happily wandered down the sidewalk, following the fluttering butterfly from one yard to the next. Daniel returned outside carrying a bowl of fresh water. "Daisy?" No answer. He smiled at first. "Come on, girl, still nothing." His smile slowly disappeared. Meanwhile, Daisy reached the entrance of Victor Langford's estate. The mansion stood behind elegant stone walls with perfectly trimmed hedges and colorful flower beds stretching toward the front door. Completely unaware she had crossed onto private property, Daisy sniffed curiously around the edge of the driveway. Her wagging tail brushed against a decorative flower pot. It tipped over. The ceramic pot shattered on the stone pavement. The sharp sound echoed across the yard. Victor stormed out of the front door. What was that? His eyes immediately landed on the tiny golden retriever puppy. His face hardened. A stray. Daisy looked up happily, expecting the same kindness she received from everyone else. Instead, Victor marched toward her. "Get out." His booming voice startled the puppy. She backed away, ears flattened, but instead of leaving, she froze in confusion. Victor grabbed a nearby gardening rake and slammed it onto the ground beside her. The loud crash made Daisy yelp. Terrified, she stumbled backward. Then Victor shoved her away with a powerful kick. The tiny puppy rolled across the stone driveway, crying in pain. Across the street, several neighbors gasped. One woman covered her mouth. Another immediately pulled out her phone and started recording. An elderly man shouted, "Stop. It's only a puppy." Victor ignored them all. "If nobody owns it," he yelled, "it doesn't belong here." At that exact moment, Daniel turned the corner, calling Daisy's name. Then he heard a heartbreaking cry. His heart dropped. He sprinted toward the sound faster than he had run in years. As he reached Victor's driveway, he saw Daisy trembling on the ground. Daniel immediately knelt beside her, gently lifting her into his arms. The frightened puppy pressed her face against his chest, shaking uncontrollably. Victor folded his arms. "It was just a stray," he said coldly. Daniel looked down at Daisy's blue collar. Her silver identification tag was still attached. Then he slowly looked back at Victor. "No," Daniel replied quietly. "She has a home. And now, she'll have justice." Daniel carefully carried Daisy to his truck while trying to keep her calm. "It's okay, girl," he whispered. "I'm here." Officer Emily Carter arrived moments later after several neighbors called 911. She quickly assessed the situation. "What happened?" Before Daniel could answer, Victor stepped forward confidently. "The dog wandered onto my property and became aggressive. I defended myself." Emily looked at the frightened puppy curled against Daniel's chest. The little golden retriever wasn't barking. She wasn't growling. She was simply trembling. Daniel gently showed Officer Carter Daisy's blue collar and silver identification tag. "My name and phone number are right here," he said. "She's 5 months old. She slipped through an open gate while I was fixing my fence." Emily nodded. "I understand." She photographed Daisy's injuries before Daniel rushed her to a nearby emergency veterinary hospital. The veterinarian examined Daisy immediately. After several X-rays, the doctor returned with serious news. The good news is she doesn't have internal bleeding. Daniel released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. But the veterinarian continued gently. "She has a fractured front leg, bruised ribs, and severe soft tissue injuries. Someone used significant force." Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. Years in the military had taught him to stay calm during crises, but seeing Daisy in pain hurt far more than any battlefield memory. He leaned over and stroked her head. "You fought enough today," he whispered. "I'll handle the rest." Meanwhile, Officer Carter continued interviewing neighbors. This time, something unexpected happened. People who had always stayed silent finally began speaking. "I saw everything," one elderly neighbor said. "He kicked that puppy." Another woman stepped forward. "I recorded part of it on my phone." Then a teenage boy raised his hand. "My family's security camera points toward Mr. Langford's driveway." Officer Carter looked at him. "Does it record continuously?" The boy nodded. "Every second." Within an hour, officers reviewed the footage. The video clearly showed Daisy quietly wandering onto the property. She never barked. She never lunged. She never threatened anyone. It also showed Victor walking toward the puppy before violently kicking her across the driveway. The room fell silent. Officer Carter paused the video. There was no attack, she said quietly. There was only cruelty. Victor still believed his wealth would protect him. When detectives informed him about the security footage, he laughed. My attorneys will bury this. But by the following morning, animal cruelty investigators had opened a formal case. Local news stations requested copies of the police report. Witnesses continued coming forward. Even some of Victor's own employees quietly admitted his temper had frightened them for years. For the first time in a long time, Victor Langford realized money couldn't erase what the cameras had captured. And across town, as Daisy rested after surgery, Daniel made a promise beside her bed. I won't seek revenge. I'll seek justice. That promise would soon lead both men into a courtroom where the truth could no longer be ignored. 3 weeks later, the courtroom in Colorado Springs was filled to capacity. Residents who had witnessed the incident sat quietly in the gallery. Reporters lined the back wall, notebooks ready. The case had become a symbol of something much larger than animal cruelty. It was about whether wealth could place someone above the law. Victor Langford entered wearing another perfectly tailored suit, his expression as confident as ever. Daniel Mercer arrived a few moments later carrying Daisy, whose injured leg was still protected by a small blue cast. Despite everything she had endured, the puppy gently wagged her tail at everyone she passed. The sight softened even the hardest faces in the courtroom. Judge Rebecca Holloway entered, and the proceedings began. Victor's attorney stood first. This was an unfortunate accident, he argued. My client believed he was protecting his property from an unknown animal. Daniel's attorney calmly rose. Then the evidence will speak for itself. The courtroom lights dimmed as the security footage played on a large screen. Everyone watched in silence. The video showed Daisy wandering harmlessly into the yard, sniffing flowers and wagging her tail. She never barked. She never showed aggression. Then Victor appeared. He shouted. He advanced toward the frightened puppy. Finally, he kicked her with enough force to send her tumbling across the driveway. The room became so quiet that even the clicking of a camera sounded loud. Victor lowered his eyes. For the first time since the case began, his confidence seemed to disappear. Next, the veterinarian testified. She explained Daisy's fractured leg, bruised ribs, and the pain the puppy had suffered. These injuries, she said firmly, were entirely consistent with deliberate blunt force trauma. Then came the neighbors. One by one, they described exactly what they had seen. An elderly man admitted, I wanted to stop him, but I was afraid. A young mother wiped away tears. My daughter cried all night after seeing that puppy get hurt. Even Victor's longtime groundskeeper took the stand. With visible hesitation, he admitted, Mr. Langford has always believed money could solve every problem. Victor's attorney attempted to challenge each witness, but their stories matched perfectly. Every detail, every timeline, every piece of evidence. When Daniel finally took the stand, he spoke without anger. I didn't come here because Daisy is my dog. He gently rested his hand on the puppy's head. I came because no living creature deserves cruelty simply because it's smaller, weaker, or unable to defend itself. His words echoed through the courtroom. Many people quietly wiped away tears. Judge Holloway nodded thoughtfully before announcing a brief recess. As everyone waited for the final ruling, the entire courtroom understood one thing. Justice was finally within reach. When the court reconvened, every seat was filled. No one whispered. No one checked a phone. Everyone waited for Judge Rebecca Holloway's decision. She looked down at the evidence spread across her bench before addressing the courtroom. This case is not about wealth, she began. It is not about social status or influence. She paused, allowing the silence to settle. It is about accountability. The judge reviewed the security footage once more, the veterinary reports, and the consistent testimony from every witness. The evidence leaves no room for doubt, she said. The defendant knowingly and unnecessarily inflicted harm on a defenseless animal. Victor Langford slowly lowered his head. For the first time in years, there were no lawyers who could argue away the truth. Judge Holloway continued. This court finds Victor Langford guilty of animal cruelty under the laws of this state. A quiet murmur spread through the courtroom. The judge ordered Victor to pay all veterinary expenses, substantial financial penalties, and complete hundreds of hours of community service at a certified animal rescue organization. She also prohibited him from owning or caring for animals for the period allowed by law. The courtroom remained silent as Victor absorbed the consequences. Daniel didn't celebrate. He didn't smile. Instead, he gently scratched Daisy behind the ears. That's enough, he whispered. You can rest now. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded Daniel. One journalist asked, "Do you feel like you've won?" Daniel looked down at Daisy, whose cast would soon be removed. I don't think anyone truly wins when cruelty happens, he replied, but justice gives people a chance to choose kindness next time. His answer appeared on local news that evening, touching thousands of viewers across the state. Months passed. Daisy's leg healed completely. Before long, she was running through parks again, chasing butterflies exactly as she had before that terrible day. Only this time, Daniel never let her out of his sight. Inspired by the overwhelming support from the community, Daniel used part of the court-awarded compensation to establish a non-profit rescue initiative for abandoned and injured dogs. Volunteers quickly joined. Veterinarians donated their time. Families opened their homes to foster rescued puppies. What began with one injured dog soon became hope for hundreds of others. Even some of Victor's former employees volunteered at the rescue center, determined to help create something good from a painful event. One crisp autumn afternoon, Daniel stood outside the new rescue facility watching dozens of dogs play safely in a large fenced field. Children laughed as Daisy happily greeted every visitor with the same gentle heart she had never lost. A little boy asked Daniel, "Why is she so friendly after everything that happened?" Daniel smiled. Because kindness is stronger than cruelty. The boy nodded, bent down and hugged Daisy. Her tail wagged wildly. In that simple moment, Daniel realized the courtroom hadn't delivered the greatest victory. The greatest victory was that cruelty had failed to steal Daisy's trusting spirit. As the sun dipped below the mountains, Daniel clipped Daisy's leash onto her blue collar and they walked home together. Side by side. Exactly as they always had. Because in the end, money could buy mansions, expensive suits, and powerful lawyers, but it could never buy honor. And it could never defeat the quiet strength of compassion. The smallest acts of kindness often leave the greatest legacy, and true character is revealed not by how we treat the powerful, but by how we treat those who cannot protect themselves.